Hello and welcome back to another video on my channel. I thought in this video I would do a quick one on what books you could read if you're looking to study law at university. I obviously am studying law at university, so I read these books for my personal statement and just generally, and I thought it'd be a good sort of video to do for those who aren't sure where to read, because there's so many books out there and some of them are so hard to read and digest, and these were the ones that I was able to understand, and hopefully they will help you as well. So the first book I've got on my pile is Letters to a Law Student by Nicholas McBride. This is a very useful book. It's literally written for your age group, so 17 to 18-year-olds or even younger, and it's looking at whether studying law is the right thing for you to do at university, what law students do, the challenges of studying law. It also looks at myths and debunks them about studying law, tells you what the challenges, the positives of studying a law degree, and yeah, but it is very useful. I would highly recommend. And then the second book on my pile is The Secret Barrister, and this is interesting if you're particularly concerned with the unfairness of our justice system and how there isn't always a protection of citizens, how innocent people are wronged and the guilty are allowed to walk free. So this is very good, and it looks at real life examples. So if you are particularly interested in how the law plays out in real world and real cases, then this is a very easy read, because it very easily tells you, without getting too much into detail of legal terms and legal ideas, about the rights and wrongs of our legal system. And then we've got East West Street, and now this is a really interesting book by Philip Sands, because it looks at the formation of international law at the Nuremberg trials. So if you're particularly a history nerd and you love history, I mean I do, this is a great book to read, because it talks about World War II, the aftermath of World War II, and particularly the Nuremberg trials, what was happening in Germany at the time. And it's a combination of sort of a historical story and a memoir. So because it talks about the formation of international law, it shows how it's played out for generations to come and the long-lasting impact of it. So again, another book I'd highly recommend, especially if you're looking at the origins of law and how law came to be and why it is that we do some things in the way we do today. And moving on from that, and quite similar to that book, is The Rule of Law. Again, looking at the origin of the fundamental concept of in law. So our most sort of important fundamental concept is the rule of law, that no one is above the law. And this book so clearly explains it and demonstrates what the rule of law means and how important it is to everybody in modern society. It's an amazing book, and it's not always an easy read. It does use legal terms, but for books like this, what I like to do is highlight. So I've highlighted certain key phrases that stood out to me, and then I've also got pencil annotations, which is important. And remember, if you are reading a book to put in your personal statement, always make sort of pencil annotations, or at the end of the book just put a post-it note and write the key takeaways, because if you do have an interview and you're asked about the book, then you need to know, otherwise it won't end well. And then finally, I've got What About Law by Catherine Barnard, Janet O'Sullivan and Graham Virgo. Now this was the book that I wrote in my personal statement. I think this is such a useful book because, again, like Letters to a Law Student, it's aimed at 17 to 18-year-olds, and it helps you decide whether law is the right choice for you, and it also just gives you an insight, because realistically no one would have ever studied law before going to university unless you do law A-level. So it really just shows how important law is, how intellectually stimulating it is, challenging it is, but most importantly It looks at different types of law, so it looks at criminal law, law of contract, tort law, land law, equity, constitutional law, European Union law. So, you know, I was particularly interested in constitutional law, and this book made me even more interesting, so then I could use examples from this book in my personal statement, which was useful. And again, if you're looking for an area to focus on, or, you know, an area that really interested you, then this is useful because it talks about specific cases, famous cases, the implications of them, and it gives you, you know, food for thought as well, which is always very nice. And those were the main books that I'd read. But there are other books as well. So if you're looking at something similar to The Secret Barrister, or something that looks at real life examples of the law, In Your Defense by Sarah Langham is a really good one. If you're looking at women and the law, Eve Was Framed by Helena Kennedy is a really good one. So there's so many books that you could read, and these are just examples of books that are quite easy to read and aren't written, you know, in legal jargon, and you can read it quite easily, you know, without panicking and without scratching your heads too hard. But I only wrote one book. I think typically people write one or two books. What I did was I wrote an article. I read an article, Brexit, A Constitutional Moment, by Mark Elliott, who actually is a teacher, a professor at Cambridge. And you can access that from Public Law for Everyone, so that's the website. And it's got amazing articles written very simply, concisely, and it talks a lot about present issues, so it's really good if you're interested in that. And likewise, you know, look at articles online. If you find them easy to read, they are much shorter, so it's always a good option to have. Always remember, don't read books for the sake of it. Don't read it just for your personal statement. You need to have an interest in it, and I think it's always going to help if you have an interest in your books that you are reading, because if you're thinking about doing a degree in law, you are going to be doing it for the next 3 or 4 years, so it's useful to have. Likewise, make sure you do read them, because especially if you have an interview, if you're applying to Oxbridge, or if you know, if you have any interview in any other university, make sure you do read the books, so if you're questioning them, you can answer the question. So that's it really. It was a really quick video, but I thought it'd just be useful to give you a starting point of what sort of books you could read. I hope this is useful, and if you have any other suggestions of books that you've read that you found very interesting or enlightening, please leave them in the comment below. And that's it from me for this video, and I'll see you very soon with another one. Bye.